All right, welcome to Film Obsessive. I am Paul Johnson, executive editor and owner of the site, and I'm here today with first-time feature film director Oliver Pearn, who's visiting with me from the UK. Oliver, hello. I want to jump right into your first film on the line, and it's a film that features a single protagonist on screen for the entirety of its duration. I'm just curious how this concept came about and what you look to for inspiration.
Yeah, so I thought I thought having one person on screen would be really easy to write and direct. But it wasn't easy to write and direct because you have to make it interesting. And so there was a challenge. But I come from a background as an AD, and I thought, look, I want it to be really easy because I did this one film where we were trying to do 20 locations in not enough days, and I thought, not again. So I just thought, look, let's keep it simple and just really go back to the basics and get that right. I really love the film Slender Thread, which is Sidney Poitier's film, where it's a film from the 70s, and or maybe even earlier, I don't know. And there's lots of these kind of inspirations and references that I've kind of loved, and old films. And I think there is that there's a very old nostalgic feel about the film. Lots of people say, oh, it's a bit like Hitchcock, or it's a bit like anything, which is great. I mean, to be in the same breath as that, but it's that kind of that old style filmmaking.
Um, your primary actor, the only one who's visible on screen for the duration of the film, Victoria Lucy as Agnes, plays a switchboard operator who hears evidence of a crime. And I'm just wondering how you cast her in particular, and what can you tell us about her performance?
So she comes from a background in theatre. So she was on the West End, The Mousetrap. And that was really important for me when I was casting it, that I had someone with that theatre experience. And what I was looking for is what they're doing when they're not speaking, because you don't leave, Vicky for 10-minute takes. There's a lot of times when she doesn't speak for a minute when she's listening. Well, there's only one place where I really try that and push that to its maximum. Usually she's very active. But it's when she's not speaking, and you just and it's reaction. Acting is reacting, and a lot of actors don't always. It's all about their lines, and then they're on their phone between lines, and then they're saying their next line. We had none of that, so it was all on her, and she just took it all on her shoulders. And I had it kind of very from the beginning when I kind of wrote the script. You usually break scenes down by external, internal, location, and day or night, right? But we didn't do that. We did it by time of day, which was actually cheating in a way, so I could kind of do it by shots. So she knew that she had to, if I had an 8-page, she had to do 8, or if it was a quarter of a page, that was easy. So it was kind of very inbuilt, and she kind of knew what she needed to learn, lines wise, quite early on. And we tried to stick to that. Of course, there's some flexibility, and she's so amazing, we could try things out differently. But and she was amazing. I mean, the thing was, we didn't know if it was going to work, and the biggest threat to the kind of film was, on the first day we had this switchboard that was it's actually a fake front of the switchboard with the lights, and I was operating the lights as well as directing and everything else. So I mean, that's what it was. And we had a switchboard expert there, and I was consulting with them, who maintains the switchboard room. It's actually a working switchboard room, which I might come back to later. But and we got to, we asked him, and we'd take his input, and we did it as accurately as we could. But yeah, the lights on the switchboard, it was on switchboards of the time, but it wasn't actually this one. If that makes sense. So we didn't know if we had a film, because we weren't sure if she was going to be able to operate the switchboard, juggle accents, and act, and get all the phone calls coming in from other places. So she
That
did well.
sounds like quite a challenge. It interests me too to hear you say that you look to the theater, because it strikes me that unlike theatrical acting, almost all of her work in your film is in close-up. But I want to hear also a little bit about the production itself and the technical details. So Vicky, you call her Victoria, is the only one who's on screen, the only physical actor, but you have maybe a dozen voice actors. Are they present during the production at the same time that she is, or were they pre-recorded, then played on set for her to respond to, or were the entire processes completely separate and then mixed together?
A bit of all three. So I didn't want to have a dry AD reading in, and that's something I really wanted to avoid because we have these long cuts and long takes. The timing has to be right, and invariably, if you get someone dry reading in, the times would all be wrong when you get to do it properly later on. So we did do ADR where we filled in about probably 15 of those voices, but I did have three or four actors there. Who Joanne, who plays Martha, Thomas Bliss, who plays Frank, and a couple of the voices, and they were talented and they could fill in for the other voices as well. So that was brilliant, and actually it made it a great kind of set as well, having having really acting, and it was quite fun because we had I think for one of the scenes we had 5 voice actors all on different lines calling in, and it was a bit like, where are they calling from? We had someone in an RAC hut outside because it's at this museum place, and there was one in an RAC hut, one in a Doctor Who's TARDIS, and one's in some other place. So it was cool, and we made it work. Calling in.
And what were some of the other technical challenges? I'm just thinking in terms of a one room, one actor set for the most part, just in terms of cinematography, editing, or sound.
So, I mean, I kind of got to edit in my head because we shot it chronologically. So that was very unusual, and it was great to be able to do that. So I kind of had a very clear idea, and I was speaking with my DOP a year before we went into production. We had it very tight, although we, especially kind of later on, we got ideas as we went along with the script, and we thought that'd be right for that moment, that'd be right for this moment. And we loved the top down shots, so we went back to that. That was our go-to. And yeah, but sound's so crucial in it, and it's probably more important than anything else. I mean, this film wouldn't work without sound being believable. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on that, and we recorded everything again. Put the sounds in, and they're all authentic sounds. Even the sounds that we recorded there, and recording sounds, and when you're waiting for the line to open, when it lines open, someone's on it, not on it. It was the actual right sounds. So I should get a lot of brownie points from all the switchboard people. So that's why that's all right, because we got that bit right. And what's really cool as well is Matthew Collings, the composer. He incorporated those sounds into the actual soundtrack. So and that worked really well because it kind of they're quite mundane sounds in a switchboard room, really, and he gives it life, and it becomes this kind of like entity of its own. It's kind of living, breathing. The machines do actually kind of operate randomly, and like I love that kind of element, and it feels alive and very claustrophobic when you really can play with what you've got and really ramp that up.
It's a technology that watching on screen feels completely antiquated, but as I was watching, I was also reminded today of how almost every GPS or voice assistant is gendered as female, just as switchboard operators were mid-century. I'm just kind of curious, what drew you to that technology in the first place?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I read history at university, and I think that's got something to do with my love for old machines and watches and everything like that. But I think there's also something about, I want to kind of like preserve these kind of things. This is the last operational one actually in the UK, and once these enthusiasts are no longer able to kind of look after it, this knowledge is going to kind of disappear. and it was just kind of great to kind of be involved with, just recording it as it was and keeping it alive. And it's kind of like a time capsule in a way. But it feels very modern. And there was that, that blend of, classicism with modernity, even how we shot it and how it sounds. But there is that, that kind of the twist of the ages.
There is, and I think there's a moment there too. It's really worthy of exploring where a woman like Agnes was entirely responsible by herself for much of the communication on those islands, and a lot of that communication was, simply put, life or death.
Well, exactly. I mean, the theme of the film really is community. It's in the guise of a thriller, but it's about community. And she is that central pin. She's at the center of it, but she's also so far removed from it because she's isolated. And I love that kind of that dichotomy of it. And that, yeah, and there is something there that she's the glue holding the island together, and I think she actually says that as one of her lines. And that's true. And with AI and things like changing today, it's kind of it's amazing that these professions have died out and seem so abstract and so different. And in the future, when things are all changing at the moment with AI, and that's things are going to be changing in the future again. So it is just the importance of these professions, and we value them. We value female work, and I think her having there's a lot of questions about her 1960s attitudes to females' roles and workplaces, and this was probably one of the only roles women were able to do, or definitely 40s 50s, but it's the same thing. And and it's so important that they did this important job, and it was hard. And she's doing the maintenance of the switchboard, which lots of people told me she wouldn't do, but actually I went to the experts and they told me that they probably did. So yeah, so
I
so
appreciated
talented.
I appreciated her skill with the soldering iron in the first couple seconds of the film. It looked like work that needed to be done. You mentioned Poitier. You mentioned Hitchcock briefly, and as I watched your film, I was reminded a little bit of Rear Window, where the protagonist's perspective is limited and forced, and as we learn, kind of partial in a way. I'm just wondering if there's other films along the way that you look to perhaps for reference in your film or for inspiration?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of a very established kind of set of films. There's quite a lot, Locke, saw claustrophobic films, and in this vein where there's a film called Kimmy that came out last year, and there's another one that played at South by Southwest this year called Monolith. And there's lots of these kind of one person, one location films, and that do it. And I think it's such a hard one to get right. Um, I'm not sure we got there, but we tried. And I just really love the kind of like the theme and the um and just where it goes to really. But I think looking at kind of the greats, the Kurosawas, and all of that, and what they can do in one location, and and the way they blocked it. I mean, for me, my inspiration actually, and the guy who showed me that I could do it was Bellatar. And there's a film called Autumn Almanac, and he's a very expressionist, and it's also doesn't really have a plot at all. Well, it does have a plot, but it's not like a thriller, it's not a genre film. And just the very kind of like the simple camera actions and just the kind of the sense of place that gives you really inspired me, and made me believe I wanted to give it a go, and shoot it kind of that way, but also put my own touches on it.
So, in the future, do you see yourself working more in this vein, or are you looking towards cast of thousands, lots of green screen, widescreen epics? What's next for you, Oliver?
Oh well, I wouldn't say no to that. um, uh, look, I'm just really quite excited to, see what opportunities come up through this film. I'd love to stay in narrative, and that's really like where my passion is because I that's just where what I get the most out of. Um, but indie films is difficult at the best of times, so we'll see. But whether that takes me if I go down the TV route and you get lots of great experience of working with actors and working against the clock, which Spike Lee and lots of people worked wonders for. So there's still lots of times ahead. But I've worked on Marseillais, I've worked on Napoleon, I've just come off Rings of Power for Lord of the Rings, where I've been on set every day. So as a PA rather than anything else, but it's great to kind of be absorbed in that world and see how it can be how it's done at that level. So it doesn't seem impossible, and I think in a lot of ways because you're not wearing so many hats, it's there's difficulties with it, probably managing producers and expectations, but in terms of creatively doing what you want to do, that would be great to kind of get there because and not actually that daunting, but we'll see. I mean, I just think I love character driven stories, and that's what On the Line is. And so anything with a strong character and building that world around it, but yeah, would be something I'd love to do. I've got a few projects on the go.
And what's next for On the Line?
So it's playing at Newport Beach Film Festival in about 10 days, where it'll be great. So I'm going out to that. And it's just, it's a great chance to celebrate the film. We're kind of halfway through our festival run now. And it's going to have its release in January next year, which will be great. So we go up on all the kind of platforms, and I've got a sales agent, which was great, and they've done a great job, and they've got a distributor on board. And I went to the European film market and walked the pavements and got something together for it. So that was good, and it's all been an incredible experience. And yeah, the film's doing really well. We got an MG, so we're doing well on recouping our money. We sold the two big regions, so it just kind of be great to see what really comes of it. We kind of need Canada and Australia, and I think we're happy.
Oliver, congratulations on the successes of On the Line so far. Best wishes for all your work in the future. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us at Film Obsessive today.
Thank you, Paul. I'm glad you enjoyed the film.